Stephen, what's your reaction as a Raith Rovers fan?
I think as a fan, just the immediate impact is just hurt and really devastated that the club has made this decision. It was floated just before Christmas, and there was bad fan reaction to it then, so we kind of thought that it had gone away and the club wouldn't take this step. But obviously last night when the news came out that the club had actually signed David Goodwillie, I think the just almost betrayal, I think, is the word that comes to mind.
And why, given these warnings, do you think the club went ahead with it?
Well, that's the question. I mean, I have absolutely no idea. I mean, given that there had been a reaction before and the opposition to this was really clear, so the club kind of sat around the table making this decision, knowing what the damage or potential damage was to the club from sponsors, from fans, from others, from wider public opinion, to actually go ahead and do it. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking. I really don't.
Edith, is it right to describe David Goodwillie, as many have, as a rapist?
I think we need to be clear about the procedure that has been followed here, because David Goodwillie was never prosecuted in a criminal court for rape. A decision was made by the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service not to take criminal proceedings, and their reasons for that were that there was insufficient evidence in a criminal court to raise proceedings against him. But in 2017, Denise Clear raised a civil action against him. So she sued him in the Court of Session, seeking damages for the rape. And Lord Armstrong, who presided over that case, he did describe what he found to have happened as rape. But we shouldn't get confused that means that David Goodwillie is a convicted rapist in a criminal court. The Court of Session ordered that he pay damages of £100,000. That court cannot order someone to go to prison. He's also not on the sex offenders register as someone who convicted of rape in a criminal court would be. So there is a difference. And I think it's easy for people to get confused as to what's actually happened here, but it's a civil decision. It's not a criminal conviction.
And just to expand on that confusion, why would Lord Armstrong have used such a term, do you think, in a civil case?
I think because he was presented with evidence that satisfied him that a rape had taken place. But the important thing that I should have mentioned is that in a civil setting, in the Court of Session, and the way in which Lord Armstrong decided the case, the standard there is on the balance of probability. So it's a lower standard to that in a criminal court, which is beyond reasonable doubt. So Lord Armstrong decided on the balance of probability that a rape had happened. Balance of probability meaning that it was more likely to have happened than not. In a criminal court, the standard of proof is beyond reasonable doubt, and the Crown would have to satisfy a jury in a rape trial that the offence had been proved to that standard. So that's the difference in the standards of proving the case.
And Stephen, despite that confusion, you think the club has made this is a PR disaster for the club?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the damage that it'll do to the club, I mean, it's important to remember the type of club that Raith Rovers are. We're not a Rangers, a Celtic, a Hearts or a Hibs. We're a smaller club with a fan base that's run very much by a tight-knit community in the community of Kirkcaldy and beyond, and our volunteers play a huge part in that. We've got a women's team, we've got youth levels at girls and women's football, and I think we've got obviously a number of high-profile female people around the club and supporters. So I think the decision to go ahead with this and to sign this player, as they've put out a statement tonight, purely on a footballing basis and ignoring the consequences of the message this sends is just, it's kind of unthinking really that they would go down this route and not take into account the damage that it would do to the reputation of a club like Raith Rovers, and we've seen that today.
And Edith, much being made of the fact that David Goodwillie has never shown remorse. There may be an explanation for that.
I guess it's from his own position that he's always denied it, and that despite the finding of the Court of Session, despite Lord Armstrong's finding in the civil court, he maintains that position. So, certainly my dealings with criminal cases and people accused in criminal courts, if their position is that they are not guilty, that generally is their position, regardless of what a jury find. And I think what we're seeing here is very similar for David Goodwillie, saying that he maintains his innocence of that accusation. So that appears to be why he's saying that.
And Stephen, the club say they support rehabilitation. You can see where they're coming from with that, or not?
I can see where they're coming from, but again, it goes back to that idea of has David Goodwillie expressed remorse, and is this someone that we want representing our club on the pitch? Now, I appreciate some fans at Raith will say it's all about football and take it as that, but a significant number of fans are saying this is not acceptable and this is not the type of person that we want at the club. Someone who has not expressed remorse and has not taken any action to redress this in any sort of way. Footballers in communities and wider are role models to young people. My own daughter's 16, comes a long way to the football, so to Raith Rovers, and is this really the message that we're sending out to them? And I think by the number of people around the club on a high level, sponsors, directors, supporters liaison officer, the people who have resigned today opposing this, shows the depth of feeling that's there at the club.
Very briefly, Stephen, will you be going back?
I'm an optimist. I hope that the club see sense on this. The statement tonight doesn't give us much cause for optimism. I certainly don't want to go and watch, and my daughter doesn't want to go and watch a Raith Rovers team that includes David Goodwillie.
And finally, and briefly, Edith, if you will, if he wasn't a footballer, if he was applying a different trade, he probably would just be able to get on with his work.
I think that's right, and it's very difficult. I can completely understand the height of emotion surrounding this entire issue. And yes, if he was an electrician or something like that, would he just carry on? But I suppose, on the other hand, being a professional footballer carries with it other responsibilities. So it's a very difficult situation, a very emotive one.
Indeed. Edith and Stephen, thank you both for joining us in Scotland tonight.